Baltic states prepare evacuation plans in case of Russian attack. Ukrainian FM calls overnight Russian strike on energy grid act of genocide. And about turning point reached on Frontline. The latest news next. Russian forces carried out a massive attack on Ukraine's critical infrastructure. Depriving people of energy amid falling autumn temperatures is equivalent to genocide, Ukrainian Foreign Minister Andriy Sybiha reports.
Russian terrorists struck critical civilian infrastructure, particularly energy, across Ukraine with hundreds of drones and missiles. I urge all partners to respond strongly.
According to him, Russian dictator Vladimir Putin launched the attack on October 10th on the anniversary of the first massive strike on Ukraine's energy infrastructure in 2022.
This is a deliberate demonstration that he has not changed his aggressive actions, terrorist methods, and ultimatums in 3 years, and he continues to reject any meaningful diplomacy and peace efforts.
He also emphasized that Russia is worse than Hamas. Even Hamas agreed to a ceasefire and peace efforts. In contrast, Moscow continues the senseless war it started, a war it cannot and will not win.
Depriving people of energy amid dropping autumn temperatures amounts to genocide under Article 2C of the Genocide Convention, creating unbearable conditions of life to destroy a national group.
In the politician's opinion, pressure on Moscow is the only recipe that can work, but it must be strong and consolidated. This means economic pressure through tough sanctions, military pressure through strengthened support for Ukraine, and political pressure through full isolation.
Putin must feel that the cost of continuing the war exceeds the cost of stopping it. He must feel that continuing this war endangers his regime.
This is not just another wave of missile strikes. It is not about targets on the map or infrastructure statistics. It is about people, families, children, the elderly forced to survive without heat, light, or water as temperatures plummet. It is about a regime that weaponizes winter, that turns electricity and warmth into instruments of suffering. What Russia is doing is not warfare. It is terrorism in its purest form. And when the line between war and terror is crossed so brazenly, the world has a moral obligation to respond with clarity and strength. This is not new. This is a deliberate continuation of a strategy built on fear, destruction, and disregard for human life. More than 3 years, Vladimir Putin has ignored every diplomatic effort, every appeal for peace, instead of escalates, targeting civilians, destroying critical infrastructure, and now openly embracing methods that international law defines as genocidal. How many more wake-up calls that the world need? How many more cities must go dark before global leaders realize that silence emboldens tyrants? Russia is not seeking peace. It is seeking surrender, and the price of that surrender would not only be Ukraine, it would be every principle that defines the democratic world. That is why the response cannot be symbolic. It must be real, unified, and relentless. Economic pressure through hard, unbending sanctions, military pressure through faster, broader, and deeper support for Ukraine's defense, political pressure through full diplomatic isolation of the aggressor. Putin must face the truth that continuing the war will not preserve his regime, it will destroy it. The message from the international community must be unequivocal. Terror will not win. Genocide will not be tolerated. Ukraine will not fall. And those who commit these crimes or stand by and watch will be held accountable, because justice delayed is justice denied. And right now, justice is freezing in the dark. Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania are developing emergency action plans in the event of a Russian attack or escalation on their borders, according to Reuters. Preparing for possible Russian aggression, the 3 Baltic states, concerned about the rise in Russian military spending since 2022, are preparing for the possible movement of hundreds of thousands of people who may flee potential aggression. The Baltic countries have repeatedly warned their NATO allies about various risks, from Russian cyber attacks and disinformation campaigns to recent airspace violations by fighter jets and drones. Despite Moscow's claim that it has no plans to attack the alliance, the Baltic countries have significantly increased their defense budgets after Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine. Scenarios. According to the head of Lithuania's fire service, who is involved in civil defense planning, the threats can vary. It's possible we will see a mighty army along the borders of the Baltics with the apparent goal of taking all three countries in 3 days to a week, he suggested. Other scenarios discussed in the local and foreign media include sabotage of communications or transport links, a mass influx of migrants, civil unrest among Russian-speaking minorities, or fake news that sparks mass panic and flight, evacuation plans, and urban preparedness. During drills in Vilnius this week, authorities practiced evacuating 100 people. However, according to Reuters, real evacuation plans cover hundreds of thousands of people, about 400,000 residents living within 40 kilometers of the Russian or Belarusian border. Half of them are in a zone of special attention. In Kaunas, Lithuania, authorities plan to accommodate up to 300,000 people in schools, universities, churches, and sports arenas. In Vilnius, gathering points, evacuation routes, supply depots, and transport vehicles have already been designated. At the same time, in the event of an emergency, priority will be given to military equipment heading to the Baltics through the Suwalki corridor, the only land linked to Poland. Estonia plans to relocate about 10% of its population, out of 1.4 million, while Latvia is preparing to evacuate up to a third of its citizens. It is a very reassuring message to our society that we are ready and we are planning, the Lithuanian National Security Minister told the publication. Ukrainian forces continue their counteroffensive in the Dobropilya sector, repelling enemy attacks and inflicting significant losses, the commander-in-chief of the Armed Forces of Ukraine, Alexander Syrsky, stated. Syrsky noted that the operational situation on the front remains difficult. According to him, Ukrainian defense forces are focusing their main efforts on restraining the enemy, stabilizing the situation in the most threatened areas, primarily in the Liman, Pokrovsk, Dobropilya, and Novopavlovka sectors, and inflicting significant losses on the enemy. According to the commander-in-chief, during September, the total losses of Russian forces amounted to 28,500 personnel.
I held a comprehensive working meeting dedicated to summarizing the activities of the armed forces of Ukraine in September. Our defense is active. The counter-offensive operation of Ukrainian troops in the Dobropilya sector continues.
According to Syrsky, thanks to the successful actions of the air assault forces, assault regiments, and other defense forces units, it has been possible to halt and push back the enemy, which had planned at the beginning of autumn to capture the entire territory of the Donetsk region. I thank our soldiers for their resilience and effectiveness. What Ukrainian defenders are doing on the battlefield is far greater than a national struggle. It is Europe's front line. Every trench held in the Donetsk region, every Russian assault repelled in Dobropilya, every soldier who stands their ground, they are not only fighting for Ukrainian survival, they are fighting to contain a regime that threatens the entire European order. The world must understand, if Ukraine falls, the war will not stop at its borders. Putin's ambitions have never been limited to Donetsk or Crimea. He's testing the West, testing its unity, its resolve, and its willingness to defend the principles it claims to uphold. Ukraine is passing that test every day, but it should not have to stand alone. Right now, Ukrainian troops are stabilizing a front that stretches for hundreds of kilometers. In areas like Liman, Pokrovsk, and Dobropilya, they are pushing back against a military machine that has no regard for human life, international law, or truth. In doing so, they are buying time and peace for the rest of Europe. Let's be clear, the air assault units and infantry brigades holding the line are Europe's shield. The Ukrainian trenches are the new eastern border of freedom, and the Ukrainian soldier is today's frontline defender of the values enshrined in the UN Charter, the EU treaties, and NATO's founding principle. This is why supporting Ukraine is not a matter of generosity, it is a matter of self-defense for the democratic world. Every bullet fired in defense of Ukrainian land keeps war from crossing into NATO territory. Every Russian tank stopped in the Donetsk region is a tank that will never reach Warsaw or Riga, and every Ukrainian life sacrificed in this struggle is a life given in defense of a broader peace. The burden they carry is immense, but it must be shared. Europe must not wait for Russian missiles to cross new borders before it understands the scale of the threat. It must act now, with stronger military aid, deeper economic sanctions, and a unified political front, because the battle for Ukraine is the battle for Europe, and if Ukraine wins, we all win. That's all for today. Thanks for watching this video. Support Ukraine, like and subscribe.